Well, hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Now today I'm going to be making some brioche, which is an enriched bread, and I'm going to do small ones in these are mini brioche tins, and I can show you one here. They're 4 inches across here and about 2.5 inches across at the base, and basically you make your enriched dough and then you shape it and prove it, well, you prove it, then you shape it and prove it again in those moulds. Now they can be made in muffin tins. They would be smaller, so you would get more out of this recipe if you did it in muffin tins. But I've done those in the past and that worked just fine. Now for the ingredients, I have 500 grams of strong white bread flour, and I have 50 grams of caster sugar, 140 millilitres of milk which I've heated to 43 degrees Celsius, that's 110 degrees Fahrenheit. You don't want it much warmer than that because it will kill the yeast. But you do want it warm to help the dough rise. Then I have 10 grams of instant yeast. That would be 1.5 of those little sachets of yeast. I have 6 grams of salt, 5 medium eggs, that would be large in the USA, and I have 250 grams of softened butter. Now that 250 grams of butter equates to 2 sticks of butter in the USA, which is 225 grams, and about 2 tablespoons extra, slightly under 2 tablespoons, but that would be fine. So that would be that for the butter. It would be 4 cups of flour, that 500 grams of flour, and I should say that the caster sugar, 50 grams, would be 1 cup of caster sugar. So the first thing I'm going to do is to put the flour into our mixer bowl. You could do all this by hand, but it's a lot more work by hand. And into that flour I'm going to put the salt on one side and the sugar on the same side with it, and then I'm going to put the yeast on the other side of the bowl. The yeast should not come into contact with the salt at this point because salt will kill it. And then I'm going to add the lukewarm milk and the 5 eggs, and then with the dough attachment fixed, I'm going to knead this and bring it together on a low speed for 2 minutes, and then after 2 minutes I'm going to increase the speed to medium for a further 6 to 8 minutes. Okay, I'm going to scrape down my bowl just a little bit, and then I'm going to increase the speed to medium, and I'm going to work this mixture for another 6 to 8 minutes until it forms into a smooth, sticky dough. Okay, so as you can see, that's quite smooth and it's going to be very sticky. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add my 250 grams of butter, and then I'm going to mix this again on the medium speed for 4 to 5 minutes until the butter is fully incorporated. Now I'll scrape down the sides of the bowl as I need to, but the bowl should become quite clean as the butter gets incorporated. So we'll mix that in. Okay, so that's got the butter all incorporated. I'm just going to remove the paddle, the dough hook should I say. It's very, very sticky, as you can imagine. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rest this dough for it to prove for about an hour and a half, and then I'm going to put it into the fridge for at least 7 or 8 hours. I'm actually going to leave mine overnight, but that's going to allow the flavours to fully develop and the dough will firm up so we can then work with it in the morning to form our brioche. So I'm going to scrape it into a different bowl. You could leave it in this bowl, but I'm going to scrape it into another bowl which is easier to fit into the fridge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this now with cling film, plastic wrap, or with a lid. You could use a damp towel, and I'm going to allow that to prove for about an hour and a half. Then I'll come back and show you what it looks like before I put it into the fridge. Okay, so I'm back with you, and it's been an hour and a half, and our dough has risen and it's doubled in size. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lid back on, and then I'm going to put that in the fridge and chill that overnight, and then in the morning I'll come back and we'll get on and we'll make our brioche. Okay, so it's now the next day and I've taken our dough out of the fridge. Now I have to say that during the course of the first 6 hours or 4 hours, it rose up and touched the top of my bowl where I had the cover on. So what I actually did was I took the cover off and I knocked it back, just pushed the air out of it, and then I covered it again and put it back in. So it's probably wise to have a loose fitting cover on the bowl, really. So anyway, I've taken it out and I've placed it onto a floured surface. It's quite firm now. I'm going to turn that over, and what I'm going to do is you can see it's nice and firm, but because it's still sticky, I'm going to put more flour underneath it, and then I'm going to cut it into 2 pieces. And the reason for that is that I only have 6 of these brioche moulds, so I want to make sure I can keep the dough firm enough. So what I'm going to do is put some cling film or plastic wrap onto my scale, and then I'm going to weigh this and then cut it in half. 1153, so that's 550, 576. Whoops. So I want about 576 grams. So that's that, and that's going to go back into my bowl to go back into the fridge while I work with this bit. So with this, I need to cut this into 6 equal parts. So I've got 580 here. So 90 is 540. Okay. And then 546, 96 I need. So I want, with the pieces divided, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each one and I'm going to form it into a ball. As best I can. Like that. And then I'm actually going to just take my hand and run it so that I can create one large ball and one small ball, like that. And then with the large ball I'm going to make a hole in the centre of it, and I'm going to pull the small one through like that. And that becomes the shape of our brioche. I'm going to pick that up and put it into my pan and repeat that for the other 5. So with my 6 brioche tins filled, I'm going to prove those again for an hour and a half, or until they've doubled in size. Now, just one of the things I did, having shaped them, I then dusted my fingers and I poked around these heads to push them down, to try and get them into a reasonable shape. But that's what they look like. So I'm going to cover those now and prove them until they've doubled in size. Then I'm going to bake them in the oven. So I will preheat my oven at that time to 190 Celsius. That's 170 Celsius with a fan, 375 Fahrenheit. And I'm going to place these onto a baking tray and bake them in the oven. But I will come back and show you them before I put them into the oven. Okay, so I'm back with you now, and our brioche buns have rested for an hour and a half. And what I actually did with the other dough was I just rolled them out into a bun shape rather than bake 6 and then prove these, roll these and prove them all over again. So I bake all 12 at the same time. Now what I have here is just a beaten egg. I'm going to gently brush each one with the egg, trying not to let it run down into the pan if I can avoid it. So with the buns all washed with the egg, what I also have is some pearl sugar, which I'm just going to put on the bun shaped ones, just sprinkle a little bit on the top like that. Now pearl sugar can be difficult to get hold of, but if you want to do it, I found that preserving sugar, which we can get in the UK, is similar, but it's slightly crunchier, or harder should I say. This is crunchy, but preserving sugar would work okay too. I'm going to put them into the oven and I'm going to bake them for 20 minutes. Now, if you don't have the brioche tins and you want to use muffin tins, you can make 16 with this recipe, but they would be slightly smaller than this, and then where I'm baking these for 20 minutes, you would bake the 16 muffin sized ones for 15 minutes. Then take them out of the oven, allow them to cool for 1 to 2 minutes, no longer than that, and then put them onto a wire rack to cool completely. Don't leave them in the tin because they'll start to sweat underneath. So I'll put these into the oven, bake for 20 minutes, and then I'll come back and show you the results. Okay, well, I'm back with you, and I baked our brioche, our tete, for 20 minutes, and this is what they look like. And they've baked quite nicely, I have to say. And I've let them, they're still a little bit warm, but I've let them cool down. So I'm going to tear one open and just have a look inside. As you can see inside, a lovely, light, airy dough. And I'll have a taste. Very, very good. Yes, that is very good indeed. Now these will store quite nicely in an airtight container for a day or so. You can also freeze them and then reheat them to bring them back if they last that long. Very good. So that's going to be it for this recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below the video and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, which will take you to this recipe, and I'll also put a link to it below the video, and I will be back with you with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.